Creating a business that you can work on full-time in your own time is the absolute dream, especially if you're a creative person. And if you are a creative person, starting on Etsy is a really good place to start. Now, during lockdown, a lot of people started working on projects like knitting or making candles, and now they've thought, can I make some money out of this? And that's a really, really good idea. If you can make money out of stuff that you already enjoy doing, that is your hobby, it's basically free extra money that you can bring in, and you can create a business that can become something really special for you in future. But giving up everything to become an Etsy seller does have a lot of risks, because you're giving up your guaranteed income in order to get money from Etsy. So in this video, I'm going to go through all of the things you need to do to work out whether you can make your Etsy business a full-time business for you. And we'll go through some examples, some practical examples for how you can quit your job and start making money full-time with Etsy. Firstly, if you are considering this, then congratulations. You know, you're choosing a path that is a bit more difficult so that you can have a more interesting life. And I think that's an amazing thing to do, so you should give yourself a pat on the back. But if you are going to be taking the risk and making the jump full-time into Etsy, then you want to make sure that you're not taking any unnecessary risks. And that's really, really important. But the short answer is to whether Etsy can be a full-time job for you or not is yes, it can, as long as you take the right steps to take the risk out of the process. Now, the first thing you need to know is how much money are you going to need to go full-time? Well, Etsy can be really lucrative. Like, look at these two sellers here. These guys are making well over £100,000 or dollars per month, every single month. Now that is a serious business that they've created. And according to research, over 18% of Etsy sellers consider themselves full-time. So that's about 1 in 5 Etsy sellers are full-time Etsy sellers. So, you know, there are a lot of people who have done the path before you. You just need to make sure that you're not taking too much risk and just chucking everything away. So before you start, the best thing to do is to work out exactly how much money you're going to need for yourself. Now, I would aim to get to around 75% of your current salary in Etsy sales before you quit your job. Now, this is just a rule of thumb, and it's just something that I did myself. Now, when I did this exercise myself, what I did was I got all of my expenses, you know, everything. I got my mortgage payments, I got my weekly shopping, I got, you know, all the fun stuff like drinking beers at the weekend and all the stuff, you know, you don't want to miss out and you don't want to have a crap life just because you want to start selling on Etsy. Think of all of the things that you spend money on and write it down on a piece of paper. Now, it's really important to work out that you've got enough money to do this, and I think about 75% of your salary should cover it. Now, when I did all of this exercise for myself, I worked out that I needed about £18,000 to live on, and that included going for beers with my friends at the weekend as well. Because putting it down like this on a piece of paper, literally just in a notebook or in a spreadsheet, it really laid out exactly how much money I needed in order to have a good life, but also how much money I needed in order to be able to quit my job. And I worked out that about £1,500 a month or £1,800 a year was enough for me to quit my job and to go full-time with this sort of business. Now, once you have worked out exactly how much money you're going to need, you're going to need to then think about the transition into going full-time. Now, at first, obviously, you're going to have to make your sales pick up. Now, this can be quite a stressful process at first, because as your sales pick up, you know, if you're already working a full-time job and then you're picking up all this extra work in the evenings, you're going to possibly find that quite stressful. So what I would do is see if you can maybe scale back on your full-time job at first. Now, not everyone can do this, but if you can scale back your hours, or maybe even just take some cheeky hour-long breaks during the afternoon to do things like wrapping and fulfilling orders, then that's a really, really good thing to do. If you can't do that, then another way of sort of scaling your business is to get friends and family to help with packaging. If you've got kids, for example, could you get them to wrap the products up? If you've got parents who are retired, could you get them to help you go to the post office to send your products out? Because you're going to really need to scale your business in order to scale back from your full-time job. Now, if you can't scale back your job and you don't have any friends or family who can help you out, then firstly, you can try and find some more friends maybe. But if you can't do that, then another thing you can do is get a side hustle in the gig economy. Now, there's some really good websites such as Fiverr and Upwork, and these are really good places for you to showcase your skills to potential customers so that you can start making some extra money on the side doing consulting work. Now, consulting work can get paid really, really well, especially if you've got a very good skill. So say for example, you're good at graphic design or you're good at writing, then maybe you could do some graphic design work like creating thank you cards for other sellers, or maybe you could write listings for other people, or maybe even you could just write articles for people. There's loads of people who are looking for work on these platforms, and they're really good, and they're often much more well paid than a full-time job because they're just one-off projects. So that's quite a good way to scale back. Another thing you could do is make the transition from working in your job to start working at home. You could get a remote job to work from home so that you aren't commuting into the office all the time, and use that commuting time to do your packaging and do your sending your products out to the customers. There's a really good place that I found remote jobs before called Dynamite Jobs, and this is run by a group of online entrepreneurs called the Dynamite Circle, and they've all got really cool businesses. Now if you can get a job working for them, you know, in a remote capacity, then you might not even have to take a pay cut, but you won't have to commute into the office. It's a really good thing to do. Now, if you do want to know more about remote working and getting jobs in the gig economy, leave me a little comment in the comment section of this video, because I'd love to make a video on it, but I want to make sure that's something you'd be interested in hearing. But what next after that? Well, you know, once you've done all this, once you've worked out how much money you need, and once you've started scaling up your business and you've worked out basically I've got enough money to cover at least 75% of my salary, then basically you've got to just take the leap. Now, this is going to be quite stressful for a lot of people because there's lots of things that could happen that could make this potentially quite risky. But you've got to take the leap of faith, because if you don't, you'll regret it and you'll kick yourself later down the line for not doing something interesting with your life. Now, if you're unsure about taking this leap, there's an amazing book I read, which is quite randomly by the British comedian Jimmy Carr, and it's called Before and Laughter. And it's basically a summary of his life about how he quit his boring job working in marketing for an oil company and did something interesting and just worked hard at it. Like I'm saying, just work hard and hustle, and then you can really start scaling your business up. And that's what he did. He scaled his comedy up to being full-time for him, so that he didn't have to go back to his job. But he de-risked it first by things like selling his expensive car. Now, if you are going to take the full-time jump into Etsy, that's one of the main things you can do, is like de-risk your life, scale back on things you don't need. And that's why I like to write everything down. There's a few things before you do this that you should take into consideration. So firstly, can you get a side hustle? We've been into that today, but can you get a job on Upwork or on Fiverr, or even a remote working for someone off somewhere like Dynamite Circle? Another thing that I like to do is make sure you have at least 3 months of savings, so just in case something happens. You know, it's really good to make sure that you can actually pay your mortgage and you can pay your rent, just in case, you know, sales go down. Because that's the other thing, sales can fluctuate. So you've got to make sure you have got a plan for sales going up and down. Especially if your products are giftable, you know, you might find that you have loads of sales at Christmas, and actually throughout the rest of the year, you don't really have that good sales. So it's important that you make sure you've got a plan for if your sales fluctuate. You should also have a plan for scaling. As I said, family can help, but eventually you might even want to take on staff or take on help. Make sure you've got a plan in place for working out what you're going to do when you've got all these extra sales in. You know, if your business is going really, really well and you're starting to make some quite serious money, like those guys I talked about before, you're going to need to have some cash in order to pay people to help you out. You know, it's going to be really difficult for you to make all your lovely products and do all the filming yourself when you're doing it as a full-time job. And the last thing is, make sure you're scaling your business all the time. So now you're doing it full-time. This is your business. This is now your career. You should always be thinking about new product lines you could be adding and other ways you can grow your business and turn it into more of a business rather than just a hobby for you. But that's it. If you are thinking about going full-time on Etsy, you 100% can do it. It's amazing. And if you do start going full-time with your business, it's really, really good feeling, of really rewarding, and it makes you feel really good and makes you feel really proud to tell people what you do. But it does have some risks. So the main thing that you can do is to de-risk that by making sure that your business is set up for success in the long run. I hope you found that video helpful. If you go onto my channel and hit subscribe, there's loads of other videos about how you can get your Etsy business to the point where you can go full-time with it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.